A lot of modern fighting game tutorials really suck. So I wanted to make this video to start exploring what fighting games have done in the past that has worked to hopefully help improve fighting game tutorials in the future. And to start, I want to start where every fighting game starts, with the granddaddy of fighting games, Street Fighter II. Now, Street Fighter II was an arcade game, so it didn't have an explicit tutorial mode. Because arcade players aren't going to sit through a tutorial every time they put in a quarter to play. When you put in a quarter to play in an arcade game, you want to play right away. So the Street Fighter II designers had to find clever ways to teach the player as they played the game. And Capcom relied pretty heavily on their character designs in order to accomplish this. And I want to look today specifically at Ryu, how they designed Ryu to help teach the player how to play. And the reason for that is because the Shoto style is a really strong, consistent style of play that has been copied in 1,000 fighting games. You can reasonably go into any new fighting game and ask, who's the Ryu of this game? And 90% of the time, you'll be able to find a character who fights like Ryu fights. Designers of any given fighting game will include a character that has a similar design to a Shoto because it gives new players a good, strong foundation from which to start, and it gives more experienced fighting game players a familiar touchstone in that game that they can start with before they reach out to new characters. So, we're going to run through the new player experience for Street Fighter II. When Street Fighter II stood idle in the arcade, it would play computer matches between those characters, and those matches would show off all of the cool special moves that all of the characters could do. When Ryu is on the screen, the most obvious special move to the untrained eye is his fireball, right? His Tatsu and his Shoryuken, they kind of look like special moves, but to someone who doesn't know anything about Street Fighter, they just look like punches and kicks. So when a new player is trying to play the game and they choose to play Ryu, they're trying to learn how to throw a fireball. And trying to do that is no easy feat. There's no instructions on the arcade cabinets, or at least not the original ones. So you really needed either a friend or a stranger at the arcade who knew how to do it and could teach you, or like a subscription to Nintendo Power. But however you learned it, learning the fireball was the big ask the game made of the player. Try and figure out what the input is. And they made that ask with the promise that if you can learn the input, you'll be able to throw fireballs. You'll be able to do the cool thing you saw in the promotional material. So if the player perseveres through and learns the quarter circle motion, they can throw fireballs. And what do new players do with powerful new techniques they just learned? They spam it. They're going to throw fireballs over and over and over again, testing the patience of everybody they play against. And fireballs in Street Fighter II are really powerful. They have a ton of pushback. They do a ton of damage. So when a new player learns how to throw a fireball, they have this super strong new tool at their disposal, and it feels really great to use. One reason the quarter circle can be tricky for new players to learn is because of the 8-way joystick. So in Japan, the 8-way joysticks did not use a circular gate or an octagonal gate like Europe or America did. They just used a square gate. And what's interesting about the square gate is that it biases towards the corner inputs, right? Down forward, down back, up forward, and up back. And it doesn't want to be in the cardinal positions, which is just down, up, forward, or back. And the reason the quarter circle can be tough to learn on a square gate is because new players are likely to get their stick stuck in that corner position, right? They can get down okay, and they'll get into the corner okay, realizing that you have to actually push up on the stick in order to get it into that forward position is not readily obvious to a lot of them. And so that snag is the reason Ryu's DP motion is so genius. On the surface, the Dragon Punch input is really awkward, right? You have to go from two different cardinal directions without hitting the diagonal in between. You have to go forward, down, down, forward. But in the context of a new player just spamming fireballs, it's actually just the fireball motion, but with the forward input put at the beginning of the motion instead of at the end. So if a new player is spamming fireballs, and then they make that mistake where their stick gets snagged in the corner, instead of the last three inputs being the quarter circle, their last three inputs are now the Dragon Punch input. And now they get a DP motion, which is exactly what you would want to throw out after you've been spamming fireballs. You know, if you're throwing fireballs, the opponent is going to get frustrated and they're going to try and jump in on Ryu to stop him from doing that. And the DP motion is Ryu's most powerful anti-air. That's why the Dragon Punch is so brilliant. And the designers actually took it one step further, because if you're using the heavy version, which does the most damage, so new players will probably use the heavy version, and you screw up the Dragon Punch input, as long as you end in that down position and you hit heavy punch, you get Crouching Heavy Punch, which is another anti-air. It's called the poor man's Dragon Punch for a reason. And this works so well as a design tool because you've incentivized the player to try and learn one thing, right? They want to throw fireballs because that looks cool and it feels powerful. And in relying on the player to screw up doing that, you've allowed them to stumble across everything else they need to know. All of Ryu's more aggressive options, like his Tatsu and his 6M, all of that can be learned later, but the core of Ryu's design is to throw fireballs and anti-air people who jump in on him. And this sort of stumble across it design is really great for them. And it's the reason that this Shoto design has been copied by 100 different fighting games after Street Fighter II came out. And so I think the major takeaway from this is that a character's special moves should inform the player how the character should be played. And trying to design moves in such a way that they lead into one another can help communicate to the player what the design goals of the character are in a really organic way. Nothing kills a new player's experience more than being told they have to sit in training mode and practice quarter circles and dragon punches when they don't. Designing tutorials that lean on strong character design can really make the learning process more organic. So I hope you enjoyed this look at Street Fighter II's character design for Ryu. I'm looking to make more of these, maybe on other characters in Street Fighter II or what other fighting games have done to tutorialize themselves in the future. Let me know what you think about character design as a foundation for player learning in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.